Do we want to be decisive? Probably not.
My favourite part of the film was the family dynamic between the two of you. I was wondering if you guys did anything together to kind of make that bond feel so realistic.
I mean, we spent a lot of time we had a
2-week rehearsal period, and I think just being there talking to each other every day, we just kind of built up a relationship which we used on the farm. And yeah, I mean, we had a lot of archery training together.
What your relationship with the horror genre is like, and what it was like shooting with The Infected, because their makeup's amazing.
I've watched horror films since I was really young, so I'm very desensitized to it, but The Infected kind of changed that because they're scary, Getting chased down a hill by like 10 of them is always going to be intense and terrifying. So yeah, it was very fun, but the prosthetics did an amazing job because they look so good.
They were fantastic, yeah.
Your character, Jamie, would have been really young at the time of the initial outbreak, so I was wondering, how did you approach filling all the gaps in his backstory for the 28 years that would have passed? He's obviously...
Yeah, well, he definitely carries that in this movie. He carries that trauma from the event that's happened. And yeah, he would have been a teenage boy. And yeah, you definitely bring that baggage into this story. I mean, you find these guys, they've found a solace in this community living in Holy Island. And, they've survived this time. So they're coming from a place of fear and survival mentality, but they've found a purpose. My character's found a purpose, and that is to be a warrior for this community, or be someone who goes out to the mainland to hunt, and he takes his son for the first day to get his first kill. And that's where you are introduced to the family and what they're going through.
And because we're a cinema, I wanted to ask what the first film was you remember it watching in the cinema.
Do you know what? I can't remember the first, but what just came to mind actually was Danny Boyle's The Beach. I remember watching that in the cinema and just absolutely loving that movie. And again, the music, and again, a visceral movie where it takes you to a whole new world. And obviously this is before we even really had, knowledge of like islands and things like that outside. And, we didn't have like images on internet and things like that. So it really felt like a sort of, cinema is really immersive when you get to go and experience something.
Despicable Me.
That's a brilliant first cinema experience.
I think that's one of the first. I can't remember the first one because my brain was probably as smooth as a bowling ball. But yeah.
I know The Infected aren't zombies, but can you settle the ongoing debate as to whether the films belong in the zombie subgenre or not?
Do we want to be decisive? Probably not.
Oh, but they clearly do. I mean, they just clearly do.
Where this all comes from is when we did the first one, we wanted to separate ourselves from people's expectations of what a zombie movie meant back then. And so we were adamant that, it would be like, how dare you say the word? And then somebody pointed out that the word is used actually in the dialogue of the film. Eric actually, the Swedish guy actually does use it at one point in this film. Anyway, it was simply to mark out territory that people's expectations would be challenged, really. And so we came up with this vocabulary that we call them the infected, just to separate themselves.
So I would personally just say yes.
Kind of thinking about the passage of time, obviously so much has happened for you both in terms of the films you've made in the last 28 years. We've also had a pandemic. How have those experiences contributed to the world building of the 28 years that have passed since that initial outbreak?
Hugely terrible thing to say about something that caused such sadness and grief for so many people, but terribly useful for filmmakers, because it gives you real events and real experiences to build on, to talk about. The actors immediately feel like it elevates the circumstances into something that they recognise. I think for the deserted London scenes from the first film, everybody recognised all around the world. In fact, lots of publications made the point of comparing the two. So it was interesting that something could change so suddenly. I mean, that's what you thought always just belonged to the movies. Because it's a long time since the Second World War, if you see what I mean, in terms of our own, when that must have been a very common feeling of being in an extreme crisis where things are just stopped dead. And something has to replace them, a different form of living has to replace them. So the world building has all that richness that comes out of how would I survive? How would I live? But COVID also helped us, that it revealed that, of course, after your initial alertness, you wouldn't keep like that. You started to go out into the world, you started to stretch, you started to take risks, really. You could find out how much you could take and still stay safe. And 28 years of that kind of living would make you reach out in quite a big way. And indeed he does, by taking his son to the mainland. If it was happening 28 days after the original infection, it would be an unthinkable risk to take a 12-year-old boy. But 28 years, it becomes part of their culture. No, you have to be blooded in how we take risks to survive. We need to go to the mainland to gather fuel. Therefore, boys have to be taught how to kill, defend. That's part of his blooding of the boy.
Speaking about Alfie, he's amazing. How did you find him? Because he's such a talent.
We looked at around. I mean, the first thing you have to do when you're casting kids is you can't see all 400 million children who are 12 years old and speak English. You have to narrow your search. I mean, it sounds ludicrous, but you do. You have to start off and say, well, let's get twins, or, well, let's get people from a certain area. And so you look in Newcastle. And we looked in Newcastle, which is where Alex had set. Holy Island is off the coast, the northeast coast. So Newcastle was a natural centre that we wanted to base ourselves in to make the film. So we looked in Newcastle, but he was exceptional. And I think what he does in the film, which really surprised me, is and a lot of this is due to his actors the fellow actors helping him, is that he's very gung-ho and physical and very, as his father would want him to be in the first half of the film, which is about that. It's a relationship built on an imperfect relationship, but one that's built on a kind of male physicality. And he's much stiller and thoughtful with his mom.
As Every Man's a Cinema, we always like to ask people what the first film they remember watching in the cinema was and what that experience was like.
I remember the first film I saw in the Everyman.
Ah,
Which was
amazing.
Blade Runner.
Was it? Wow.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Blade Runner was your first movie.
Not first film ever in the cinema. That would have been some like Ray Harryhausen film or something. Sinbad or something like
Yeah.
that. But I remember the first time I went to the Everyman was Blade Runner. It was in Hampstead.
So mine was, I'm a twin, I have a twin sister, and when we were 11, our treat was to go to the cinema for the first time. And my dad took me to see Battle of the Bulge, and my mum took my sister to see Sound of Music in Bury.
Wow.
And that's gender stereotyping right there.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
Yeah.